Hello, everyone. Welcome to my show, Conversation with Priya. I'm your host, Priya Mishra, and today we have a very special guest, Ben Ogden. Ben Ogden has been in an entrepreneurial journey for a long time, and we decided to cover his story, his success story, and his passion for the tourism industry, especially for the bike riding. So today, we are going to ask you to help welcome a very thriving entrepreneur. Very short term, he got the success he achieved, and more importantly, he started this into the COVID time, and when people were not even thinking, he imagined, he actually thought and designed his own life from the scratch. So help me to welcome Ben. Hi, welcome to my show, Ben. How are you?
I'm very well, Priya. How are you going?
Good. I'm good. Thank you so for asking, and thank you for accepting my request. I really appreciate. And I've been following you for a while now, so it's been amazing to see what you have created from your need to your passion and your success story now. So I would like to know about how all this entrepreneurial stuff started for you.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So, I own a business called Newy Rides.
Mm-hmm.
The whole idea is it's a tourism business that helps people discover the best of Newcastle in New South Wales on two wheels. But
Mm.
um, kind of the business started, and I guess my entrepreneurial journey. I've worked corporate jobs. I've worked in the corporate event space for a long time. But all throughout that journey, I kind of always wanted to, I guess earn my own money off my own back in a way,
Mm.
and outside of just being an employee. So the very first go I had at it was I created a food cart, like a food truck business on a three-wheeled bicycle in Sydney,
Wow.
which was great, and it did quite well, and it was in a lot of great, lists and things like that. And I quickly learned that I probably wasn't cut out for hospitality and like the pressures of cooking and things. And I hung that up and sold that business off. But as things evolved, I kind of always had that taste of wanting to push that and bring my own ideas to life. So
Mhm.
I kind of had that opportunity in 2020, and we all know 2020 was the year of the COVID pandemic, and I was working in the event management space. So typically my weeks and days were all about running events all around different places around the world. So at that time there wasn't a lot of travel. There was no travel happening, and people weren't allowed to meet. So it made my day-to-day a bit dull, and I needed something to kind of motivate me along. So kind of I was quite new to Newcastle at the time as well. So I'd only moved to
Right.
Newcastle in 2019. Um, and I live in a suburb that has a big uh, cycleway for about 15, 16 kilometres behind my house that splits between Newcastle to Lake Macquarie, which is the city just over.
Right.
And it's all completely off the road. It goes through train tunnels. It's an old repurposed railway track. And I just found myself riding that track a lot. And I was obsessed with it. And it was so beautiful.
Mm.
It goes through a lot of habitats and ecosystems and things. And I found myself as well talking about Newcastle a lot to my Sydney friends. And
Right.
to the point they were like, Ben, like, we get it. You like this new place. Like, you can shut up now. Um,
Right.
so I kind of thought, oh, well, maybe I can combine these things. I've always been into, cycling and bicycles and things. So I ended
True.
up buying some old bikes and stripping them down and repainting them and kind of creating this business, which kind of started, deciding to create a tourism business in the middle of a pandemic is probably not the smartest thing, but it kind of gave me a lot of time to finesse what I was doing and connect with a lot of people in the area,
For
for
sure.
when the time was right to kind of launch
Mm.
it and
Mm.
things.
Mm.
So from there, yeah, it's been a great journey getting that,
Mm.
from go to woe and up and running and having people join the bike tours.
Mm.
And then I try to show them like my version of Newcastle
Right.
on the bikes. Yeah.
I mean, you will imagine what this kind of a time, the time pandemic has given. Yes, it was a tough times, and there are many people lost businesses and all. But it was also a time to recheck yourself, regenerate yourself and find new things. And
Absolutely.
there's so many story I'm hearing. There are so many great ideas came on those spare time, which you will never imagine because you
No.
were never forced to do that, right?
Well, I think some people started baking sourdough and I started a business. So I don't know, like it's yeah, I know, right? I think it forced everyone to stop and think about what's kind of important to them
Right.
and do extra learnings and read more and spend more time with family and things. So for that time for me, it gave me that space to let my mind wander, I guess,
Yeah.
and create something that I knew I'd love and bring it to life. So it gave me that space to build something brand new from scratch.
Yeah. And I mean, every coin has a two side. You take it as a optimism side, or you took it as a, another side, negativity. It's your choice, your choices you make,
That's
how you.
right. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of doom and gloom around that time and people
Mhm.
were quite discouraged, but you know, it was a very throwaway line nowadays, but the fact that everyone was going through it at the same time, we're all in this together. That line that got used a lot. It's true. There's everyone was at the same place, or the majority of people were, in a predicament that they needed to find their way through. So, um, you know, I guess you just had to make the best use of that. So it was like either
Right.
get on with it, like get up and show up kind of thing, and
Right.
probably and much better for it.
So how does that work? So if you wanted to show people around and you were passionate about tourism and a mix of hospitality a bit, so
Yes.
how does that work? So if I want to be part of your community.
Yeah, sure. So, I guess it's understanding, it's a whole industry, right? So
Hmm.
the tourism industry and understanding how those booking mechanisms work and what distribution looks like, how people can find you, and the best, industry resources or advocacy groups or groups that you can be part of, business groups,
Right.
to network and get an
Hmm.
idea of the lay of the land. And then it's obviously it's a product, so people can book and things, and so I had to go and create that product. So I
Right.
was quite new to Newcastle, so I had to go and learn a hell of a lot about Newcastle. And then going through the motions of every other business owner, so pricing and branding and creating a look and feel and a website and all those things that you do. But the main things was, yeah, like having a bookable product so people can find you
Hmm.
and talking to the right people. So, the business we're coming on to 3 years old.
Right.
But we've been on national television a few times. It's been featured in a lot of, both domestic and international campaigns.
Right.
It's been a fairly successful business in its short time, but I think that just comes down to getting out there and getting to know a lot of people and
Yeah.
and doing
And
and doing that quickly.
I think people are looking for that tourism aspect. And given the scenario we have been gone through, a lot of mental health issues and all that is in our communication right now. And your product is offering that rescue place for people. And the reason, you know,
Yeah.
actually what people were looking for, right? More than the business, more than the personal lifestyle, they wanted something beyond that. And I think your business offered those aspect of when you go out, it's just not riding a bike, it's
No.
also about communicating, meeting new friends and exploring new nature is the best healer, people say,
Yeah, absolutely. I
um
and like cycling is a very healthy way to get from A to B. And sort of very authentic way to see a place for the first time as well.
right.
So one of the main drivers that I had was I've been in the tourism industry in some capacity for all my corporate, working
Hmm.
life. Um, so it was important for me to create a product that was extremely authentic. So I didn't want people to necessarily feel like they were just following around a tour guide. I wanted them to feel like they were immersed into the, the local, the locality and the culture of the region. Whereas, Newcastle has a reputation to be a steel city, and it's very industrial, and that's changing rapidly. But so it was like trying to prove that wrong. So, part of what we try to do is, show them all that touristy stuff, but then get them into the suburbs and try and, connect with locals and get a very authentic experience. But people are looking for that authenticity, and especially, the Australian market anyway, they want to feel like they're getting something that they're letting into a secret that no one knows. So you're right. Like, it is a very, it's a healing aspect in terms of, like, it's very healthy to get on a bike and ride. And, we have one of the most beautiful coastlines and harbors in the world. So to be able to showcase that and let people, discover it in a very healthy way. Yeah, it's pretty special.
Right. And I was wondering, are you going to go beyond Newcastle, or what's your future plan?
So I'd love to, never say never. I mean, I'd have to change the name of the business. But yeah, no, look, for me, I would love to see it become, it's at the moment, it's not a 7-day business. Just the destination doesn't allow for, sorry, I probably worded that wrong, but we don't have the volume of travelers coming through the destination for me to run it every day of the week. So I'd love for it to grow into that region, like grow with the region coming up. Newcastle is upgrading its airport facilities to be international ready. So we'll be soon welcoming flights from Southeast Asia and places like that. So that'll see a new market of people coming in. But yeah, I think whilst I'd like to look at other regions, my core business would be to grow here first and then see what that looks like and then make a step. I think as international travel starts coming back, it's like being ready for the international guests and cruise ships and all those things. And then maybe I'll look at a Sydney Rides or a Canberra Rides or something like that.
Sure.
Never say never.
Blue Mountain is also, Penrith is international airport. People are going to go. So all that Blue Mountain area and all that bushwalking and is already popular. I'm sure. And Sydney has a lot to offer, more than people imagine. So every time I explore Sydney, I find, I've been here for so long. I miss this. I haven't seen that.
Well, it's a big city.
Yeah, it has a heritage and culture, and there's so much to explore. And beyond that, the nature. I love the nature. Just embedded into the hustling, bustling life, you find the nature is always somewhere popping up and attracting you.
Well, it's important, I think, if you live in a city like Sydney, to be able to tap into that, because it's easy to be, in your bubble or your, work life and things, but without getting out and seeing something different. That's where, I mentioned that cycle trail that's behind my house that goes through a national park, and that's, I live 10 minutes from the middle of Newcastle. So we're super close to coast, and that's the beauty of a destination like this. It's so
and Australia has a lot to offer, to be honest, if you look at the tourism point of view. And I'm just going to take this leverage to invite people to come and explore Australia. It has amazing, tremendous opportunity to explore. And it feels like it will never end. It's so vast, so many things, so much versatility. Audience, whoever is listening, please come Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, always welcome, and always welcome to to get out and see the regional areas as well, because there's a lot more outside of the bigger, the main tourist spots. Like, get out and see, I don't know, somewhere like here, or Port Stephens, Hunter Valley. There's some amazing places around.
I did car travel from here in Sydney to Adelaide, and it was amazing experience. In between, it is all empty road. It was, it's a different feeling. You get that, we are planning to go all over Australia with that, one point of time. But traveling is such a good healer. to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah, yeah.
And
I think
especially,
it's
yeah, when
so,
you're doing biking, you feel like very connected and earthy, and and you can go places you can't imagine.
yeah, exactly. And even if you're covering a much shorter distance than than taking a train or a plane or a car or something, you are feeling it along the way. So, you are stopping to take in that, that creek or the river or the beach, or, take a seat under a tree and have a drink of water. Like, you slow down and you kind of appreciate things a lot more. So
Mm.
it's important. It's I think I'm a big advocate for cycling, so it'll always be my preferred kind of mode of transport. But it is
Mm.
something, even if you're not traveling by bike, but just appreciating your suburb or your city on a
Mm.
bicycle is important as well, I think.
Great. And so, when you started, like you were a startup business anyway, and what was your biggest challenge?
Biggest challenge, I think, you know, a lot of business owners, you start a business and you become ready for sale. Oh, sorry,
Mm.
you're ready to, you're open for business, and you're kind of wondering whether, it's not like there's a lineup of people just waiting to either book or buy, purchase whatever you're selling. Um, so I think that's the challenge of riding through the waves of that. So and
Mm.
always being on and open to opportunities. So um, for me, some of the challenges were like we obviously had the pandemic, and my business started after the big first lockdown, but then we had another lockdown in between, so we had to shut down in that time.
Mm.
Um, Another challenge, I injured myself riding a bike last year.
Mhm.
Not on a tour, but just myself, and I was out for 6 months or 7 months. I
Mm.
was quite busted up. So that
Mhm.
was a challenge of like stopping and starting and generating that momentum again.
Mm.
And I guess, in the tourism space, you're dealing with a lot of seasonality as well. So, we're affected by the weather, we're affected by, interest rates. So even at the moment, people might be like, for example, I know we're doing something that's being recorded, but at the moment, everything, interest rates are quite high in people's mortgages. So people don't have that extra money to spend on, premium products when they
Mm.
travel, and,
Yeah.
they might book a hotel and go somewhere for a meal, but, booking that extra experience might be a bit out of their reach. So we appreciate that. So just things like that, moving with the times, and being available and leaning into what's happening at the time and how we can kind of best speak to that and still generate, interest and traction.
Right.
Yeah, that's, I mean, just some, I guess that's challenges for every business owner.
Yeah, and I think government is also acknowledging that, and Queensland government has also started asking some support, providing some kind of a support. So yeah, it's a widely known, Australia-wide known issue, and it's now in the news in the international market as well. And it's internationally affecting
Yeah.
everybody. So it's nothing new, which we are not people don't know, but given the market challenge right now, I mean, I know you said never say never, and also you are all that optimism is there, but all these challenges actually how that affects you. I'm not calling it problem, it's a challenge,
Yeah.
right? And how do you think you overcome it, and what would you recommend to the people who are going through right now?
Yeah. I think for me, I'm lucky in the way that my business is very small. So we can
Mm.
act very nimbly, and it's only my business has got myself and another person in it. So we
Mm.
can react quite swiftly to things. And I think it's being very in tune with what's happening at the time,
Mm.
and creating those mechanisms to be able to react quick to it. So one of the things I have learned in my journey, running a few businesses, has been um, don't be distracted by shiny objects. And that's
Right.
I guess, just a way of saying, don't run at every idea, or don't, make sure you like take the time to flesh out what you're doing,
Mm,
and then act. So act with, act with certainty and confidence, and then go and
mm,
do it. So that's one thing I need to remind myself a lot, because I tend to react and just do. But
right.
so that's one thing I do, is kind of stop and evaluate, and then go and
Mm,
make a move. Um, I'd also probably recommend to anyone else, facing challenge, is like actually deconstructing what that is,
mm,
and then looking for maybe the most cost effective or most viable solution to get to move in the right direction. So without retreating, what's the easiest way? Or sorry, not the easiest way, but what is the best way, most efficient way, and most cost effective way to keep putting that front foot forward,
right.
then retreating. And I think that's like a big, a big learning, and it's not always hard. It's not always easy to do.
Mm,
But yeah, it's something that I try to implement in just personal life and business life as well, just without evaluating those challenges, and finding that way forward, even if it is a um very simple and, I guess, low viable product, minimal viable product,
yes.
to keep progressing. Otherwise you kind of come to a
Right.
standstill.
Right. And you should always take a proactive action rather than reactive action anyway. And
Yes.
pivoting is not a problem. Like, when you need to pivot, you need to find out like, okay, this is not working. You don't need to change your end goal, I believe. You can always find out the detour, and you can actually pursue that until you get the end goal. The focus, your eye should be on the end goal, your milestones, rather than the path you are taking, as long as it is, uh, socially and legally and all that acceptance is there. I think pivoting is not a problem. And there are a lot of businesses change themselves, pivot themselves, including corporality. Corporality has changed a lot. And during
Mm-hmm.
COVID, when I lost my 95% business, when my first lockdown, you won't
Mm,
believe, it was a really challenging. And then I was also challenged by the Australian company. Being an Australian company, I was challenged by the UK company for my trademarking situation. And
mm-hmm.
it actually, we were sitting there, and I had around 40 employee at that time. And and all of a sudden, one of my overseas staff from Serbia, they just shut down, in like five
Mm,
employees gone like this, because emergency, no internet, we can't log in tomorrow. That's it.
mm,
Like tonight, I get
yeah,
the message that they are not available from tomorrow, and I have those five people's job to cover up,
yeah,
right? And then in 20 days, I started getting all that, cancellation. It was
yes,
not easy movement for us. But
no,
what we did, we restructured ourselves. We did think about ourselves. We
mm,
pivot ourselves. End goal is not, you know, uh, compromised at all. It's just
mm,
that we choose the different path to reach there.
yeah. I think one important thing, and maybe a lot of Australians are guilty of it, is the whole tall poppy syndrome, and not trying to make a fuss or burden someone with your worries and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But one of the things I think is important in these instances, when you're faced with this adversity or challenge, is be very open about
Mm,
it with like your peer networks and things. So I know, in Newcastle, I've got a great network of other similar
mm,
business owners that are in the tourism space or in the hospitality space, or, sitting around, that I can have very open and transparent conversations with, and share
mm.
struggles, hopes and dreams and that kind of thing. And then kind of everyone lifts each other up. So there's no harm in sharing a struggle than taking it on by yourself.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
no pride lost, I think. And then often, talking it out with someone helps get through to the end result. You might talk yourself around to what's the actual struggle. It might not be as big as you think, and someone's got another remedy for whatever you're going through. And I think that's gold, really.
Yeah.
If you don't
And
have that, go and find that. Yeah.
yeah. And that's why I love that culture of having that community in Australia. Like we have our own, like different community where you can go to and talk to the people. And there are so many networkings and clubs and, professional where you can actually open up to yourself, who will understand the like-minded people you'll find. And it's amazing to see. We came across the other side, which is, and we are doing fine. We are not like extraordinary, but we are doing fine. We all are doing fine. We are still smiling. We are still living. The loved one is around. What else you want?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a very important lesson. COVID had taught a lot of people, but yeah, and company like yours are born, which might be the people would have not known. You don't know. You might have not get that time, and you might not have get that.
No, that's right. Yeah. Spot on. Yeah, you're right.
So it's an amazing achievement, and it's a good, contribution to the tourism industry. And we are looking forward to booming again. It's gonna be, before COVID, people were assuming it's gonna be $8 trillion industry, and more than that, it's growing. And I think it has a huge future going forward.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Oh, fingers crossed.
Yeah. It is gonna be. It's fact is telling, not the luck, but fact is showing that it will grow and it will continue to grow. And people are actually more fascinated about tourism, to be honest, because you have been hold for so much time.
Yeah, that's right.
So events are gonna come back, and it is coming back. We are organizing an event, and we are finding the difference anyway. So thank you so much for joining in today, and really appreciate. Before we close on, how can people find you, and what would you like to say to the audience before we close?
Sure. I think people can find me. You can find me on LinkedIn. So if you look for Newy Rides on LinkedIn, you'll see the black and yellow branding. The other one, if you're into the more fun, lighter side of things, Instagram's probably the best place, which is at Newy Rides, NEWY Rides. In Newcastle, there's two schools of thought. There's people say Newy, and that's like the abbreviation of Newcastle, but NEWY is kind of how the side of the fence we sit on. Some people might say NEWIE. It's a bit contentious here in Newcastle. Right. I don't know. I think the thought I'd leave people on is, go and support or keep supporting small businesses in some way, shape, or form. I think it's very important. There was a big message around that during the pandemic, but small businesses still need that advocacy and that community behind them to be successful. One thing that we've kind of done, and I'd encourage people to jump onto the Newy Rides YouTube and have a look, is we've created some videos where we take other notable business people and Newcastle personalities for a bike ride around the city, and we interview them just like this, having a chat, but soaking in the sights along the way. So I just invite everyone, jump on, have a look. It's kind of like a free tour around the city, and you kind of learn a thing or two from a few interesting people.
All these descriptions and details will be given, and we are looking forward to see you at our some upcoming events which you will be organizing, and looking forward to see you guys thriving and community support again. So that will be great. Thank you so much for joining in today, and really appreciate your time today.
Much appreciated. Thanks for the invitation.
And audience, thank you so much for listening and joining and supporting Corporality and Priya Mishra. And please don't forget to subscribe and like and start sharing. Let people know what's happening in this community. Looking forward to listen and hear from you. Leave your comment.